Hello everyone and welcome back to another edition of X's and O's. I'm Jay Lennander.
And I'm Eric Bunnell.
And today we're going to be talking about more NDSU football, a big game in Macomb, Illinois, as the NDSU Bison went on the road for their first outdoor game of the year, facing off against the Western Illinois Leathernecks. What did you see in that game, Eric?
Well, I saw a whole lot of defense. I wasn't able to catch a lot of it as Wisconsin was playing Michigan, and I'd kind of turned that game off after halftime. But from what I did see, I saw the Bison defense finally step up again. After a week, they got shredded by 31 in Northern Iowa. A team, yeah, they were pretty good, but I know NDSU's defense should have been able to handle them. They faced multiple spread teams, and I saw that defense just get their swagger back. Code Green's back, and it feels great. And the offense, it didn't click this game. And you saw Easton Stick; he was 11 of 20, 11 of 20 for 123 yards. He had a couple drop balls, and he should have been 15 of 20 and for like 183 yards, almost 200 yards, and the Bison could have easily ran up the scoreboard there. But I just think their defense is back, and now their offense has got to be able to get going again for this team in order to be successful. Yeah,
I think this was more of a traditional Bison win, more along the lines of what we may have seen last year, and that it was very much a defensive effort with the offense sort of riding off of that defensive pressure. I mean, like you said, with the defense and say Code Green coming back, this defense is as good as it has been in the past couple years. And really one of the biggest reasons for that is Jabril Cox. He has been everywhere this year, just making plays, and he's really not only replaced Nick DeLuca, who is sort of the core leader of the defense last year, but he's, as only a sophomore, sort of come up and become really that guy for the Bison defense, a big-time playmaker.
He definitely has, and we even saw it last year. As a freshman, that dude is just an athletic freak. Kleiman's alluded to it. He can play cornerback. They could put him at cornerback, and I feel like he'd be successful because he's more of like a hybrid linebacker with a linebacker being able to play corner. I think he could even go play safety and bang some heads. He's kind of like Robbie Grimsley. Robbie Grimsley kind of plays like a linebacker/safety hybrid type where he gets down in the box and he's not afraid to knock a few heads around and play that physical style ball, which is what the Bison have always wanted. But I feel like the addition of Dan Marlette and Levi Jordan coming back this year, that's really helped Jabril Cox because those two on the inside can just do what they can play pass coverage, and you can send Jabril Cox off the edge.
Yep, and this outdoor game, it was their first of only two on the season that are going to be played outdoors. And it was really one of the big questions as to whether they'd be able to be up against this task with just every game being indoors, seeing if it would change anything up. It was a pretty cold day in Macomb as far as, say, the broadcasters were letting us understand.
Well, they were outside sitting in the press box. Apparently, I was listening to them today. They had to pay for tickets because they take up so much space. Not Western Illinois, great university, nothing against them. That football field, I've heard compliments from some people who've watched the highlights. It kind of looks like a high school field.
Yeah, it's got that feel to it, and you'll see several other sort of competitors that NDSU face up against, like Southern Illinois. It's sort of that same feel that if this stadium were in Texas, it would be one of the lower level.
Yeah, it'd be a lower level. Texas has better high school fields than what Western Illinois got.
Yeah.
But I guess Texas football is bigger in Texas than up in Western Illinois.
Yep. And so really the bigger thing to focus on is the cold, it being outside. It changed up the Bison game plan a little bit because we didn't see exactly the same kind of just front forward offense. That was mainly, like you said, mainly the thing that suffered in this game was offense. They were able to put points on the board, but it wasn't as dynamic as
they were able to put points on the board because of their defense. Their defense helped them establish field position. And it also helps, you punt from the 40-yard line, but when you have a guy like Garrett Wagner who can pin him at the 8, and then your defense can force him to punt, you flip the field. Mm-hmm. So he really has helped. I would say, to me, that guy was probably the MVP of the game. Yeah, you could have gave it to you could have gave it to Stick, you could have gave it to Anderson, you could have gave it to Don. But being able to flip the field, that's key, and that's a critical thing that NDSU needs, especially when they're going to go up against and face tougher competition, as we saw against South Dakota State, with Wags pinning them back, pinning SDSU at the 7, and forcing them to go 93 yards in like 2.5 minutes.
Yeah, and it's sort of harkens back to the day of when they had Ben LeCompte, who could really just pin you back deep. Nothing against Jackson Kuntz last year.
Yeah, he's still a free agent, by the way. I mean, NFL teams, you're looking for a punter, Ben LeCompte will gladly come kick for you.
Yeah, in terms of punters that I've ever seen ever, just amazing, incredible how he hasn't stuck somewhere. But looking at this team, it was sort of, like we said, a classic win for the Bison, just sort of in control the whole time, even though the offense wasn't exactly as smooth as it had been sometimes in this season. But now, of course, as we sort of have been doing on X's and O's, it's like, okay, they won sort of as we expected. Things looked pretty good. Now what comes next? We talked about this a little bit last week in terms of the Illinois State game that's coming up on Saturday, back in the Fargo Dome. Obviously going to be a bit of a contest, as this is, once again, something we maybe have only seen with South Dakota State, which was the closest game of the year this year, is a more high-powered offense. And how do you think, with everything we've seen, that they're going to – is the Illinois State game still one that concerns you?
This game definitely concerns me, and it should concern any NDSU fan. They went on the road and beat Colorado State. Colorado State beat Arkansas. Yeah, Arkansas is terrible this year after the firing of Brett Bielema, and they were still terrible before that. Maybe a little biased because we left Wisconsin on a hardship. But an FBS win is an FBS win. I don't care if you beat Troy. You beat an FBS team. If you beat Kansas, they're looking pretty good this year. But you beat an FBS team on the road and you get paid, it still concerns me. That offense, James Robinson and their other running back, and I can't think of his name because I'm blanking on it right now, kind of reminds me of James Madison last year. Their two running backs, Trey Sharp and Marcus Marshall, just kind of like that thunder-lightning combo, and that's what NDSU is going up against in Illinois State this week. James Robinson is definitely the thunder, a guy who can run in between the tackles. He's also fast. Last year we really didn't get to see his speed due to the snow. Playing at Illinois State, it was a 27 victory, but I just don't know how Illinois State can come into the Fargo Dome and win. But it's going to be a barn burner of a game. I think it's going to be low scoring. I think it's going to be 14-10.
Interesting, because last year it was with the snow, of course, definitely a very different paced game.
Scoreless at halftime, by the way.
Yeah, absolutely. It was the most unique of all the games from last year.
Yeah, it definitely was.
You don't see that much. Even when there is snow out. There was a lot of snow.
Yeah, there was definitely a lot of snow.
And it completely halted both teams in terms of offense. And both teams are known to move the ball down the field a bit. And with the 14-10, I just don't know, because the Bison offense is, I think,
the Bison offense is high-powered,
especially because, like, at this point last year, Lance Dunn was hurt. They had a couple of injuries, and things weren't just running as smoothly.
Yeah,
now everyone is, to my knowledge, right now pretty
except
healthy.
for Bruce Anderson and Robbie Grimsley. But Kleiman said today in his press conference that it's less severe. It's not as bad as what they thought. So I think they'll be okay. I think Anderson will be able to go. I know last year at this time they were breaking in Seth Wilson. He's still out for maybe this week. He can come back next week. Maybe they kind of save him for the playoffs for that 4-game rule. Kid hasn't touched the field this year.
That's true, because he could be redshirted. He's young enough that.
So you put him in 4 games for the playoffs.
Yeah, especially when you've got Anderson and Dunn both kind of.
And Brooks finally he's back healthy too.
You've got a lot of people at the top, sort of just taking all the carries. I think it'd be beneficial to just keep Seth Wilson out, and next year have him and Brooks be the front runners.
Him and Brooks Cofield is there. He is going to get the front runner of the carries. The Bison running back group is fine. They have a running back in that room. I don't know if he committed here as an athlete, so I don't know if he's going to play a running back or not, or wide receiver. But DJ Stewart out of Kimberly, Wisconsin. The only reason I know this, I'm from Wisconsin. Dude was an absolute animal, running for like 300 yards some games, and he's playing against some big boys, some D1 boys. But you're running for 300 yards, you must be doing something right. I know it's only high school, but that still shows something that you're being able to do that against some D1 athletes.
Yeah, and returning to the Illinois State game, I just think this is going to be more of along the lines of SDSU. I think 14-10 is undershooting it a little bit, but more like 24-20, somewhere in that range, a little bit higher. I think just because, one, there's some unfinished business from last year. That snow kind of prevented them from having a real game against each other. But I don't know. I think these two offenses, despite how good NDSU's defense always is.
It's the top two defenses in the MVC, in the Missouri Valley Conference. Mm-hmm. So that's why I think 14-10. I know both offenses are coming in averaging 39 a game.
Yeah.
Illinois State at 39, NDSU at 39.3. Illinois State's giving up 12 a game. NDSU's giving up 12 and a half a game, but you can't give up half a point. So they're giving up about 12 points per game.
Yeah.
7th and 5th nationally, with Illinois State being 5th and NDSU being 7th. I feel like it's going to be back to that national title game where it's going to come down to that game-winning drive. Now that I said 14-10 and you're saying like both, and I said both these offenses are high-powered, I think it's going to be 31-28. I think it's going to be a barn burner.
I mean, it very easily could be, and that's sort of with how this season has been going. I think it's more on the lines of leaning in that offenses are going to find success rather than defenses. And the main example is Delaware. That was a top 10 defense, and NDSU just shredded them. It didn't help that they threw a pick six like right at the beginning of the game, and they were behind the whole time. But I think NDSU's offense is able to overcome top defenses more than they have been in the past. Like NDSU's defense, it's strong, but like when push comes to shove, specifically against SDSU, they were down coming into the fourth quarter. And I think that could happen again. It's just general feeling that I have that this year with this NDSU team, if it's two offenses going against each other, no matter what they say about the defenses on paper, that there's still going to be a lot of points on them.
And I mean, we've seen Darius Shepard. He's been able to extend the field. There's NDSU with Easton Stick, they're starting to take more shots downfield. They're starting to trust him more. He's been able to check at the line. He kind of did that last year too, but this year I feel like he's more comfortable, so he's more comfortable. And also with them being in shotgun and not Bruce Anderson and Lance Dunn on your left and right, who's going to get the ball? Darius Shepard flanked out to your left, Phoenix Sproles out to your right, Ben Ellison as a tight end, Nate Jensen as a tight end. Who's going to get the ball? I mean, Christian Watson, the 6'6" wide receiver, could very well replace Zach Vraw from a few years ago. He's so tall, and he's made a couple great catches last against UNI. I mean, it was only 9 yards, but it was a big, crucial catch in a big situation. So I think this NDSU, they're just going to hit you wherever. They're not going to dink and dunk you down the field. Mm-hmm. They're either going to play smash mouth football, run it right down your throat, or they're going to start throwing through the air, which we've seen them do this year.
And right before we go to break, which we'll be going to very shortly, it's about halfway through the season at this point. Who's your midway MVP for the Bison?
Oh, there's so many. And this guy, to me, I'll give you offense and defense. Okay. Offensive, I think it's Darius Shepard. He's starting to come on. I know I could give it to the running backs. That'd be the most simple one. Mm-hmm. Defensive, you got to give it to Robbie Grimsley. That dude is just tearing it up. He's having a heck of a year. He's doing great. Everything's going well for him. That's who I think my defensive MVPs are. Who's your offense and defensive MVP?
I think defense, I have to say Jabril Cox. He's just been too important. He's been making the big plays, and everyone's been rallying around him. And offensively, I think it has to be Easton Stick. He's kind of stepped up his game this year, and I think that's worthy enough of him to be the offensive MVP. And now we'll be taking a short break, but stick with us because when we come back, we'll be talking all about the MLB Playoffs.
Conveniently located across the street from NDSU's campus, Herd & Horns is the place to go, whether you're looking for a fantastic meal or just a quick bite to eat.
Yeah. Hi, welcome to Herd & Horns. Are you from the drink right away?
With friendly staff and excellent service, it's a restaurant for all ages. Herd & Horns, your home for great food and Bison sports. Welcome to Bison Block. If you are an NDSU student, you know it well. It's located right across the street from campus. How would you like to live in the same building as Starbucks, Jimmy John's, and Herd and Horns? Bison Block offers high-quality apartments at a very affordable price. For more information, go to our website at bisonblockfargo.com to apply today.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to X's and O's. We're now shifting to MLB Playoffs, and Eric, you seem to have changed clothes again. That seems to be a bit of a theme.
It's been a bit of a theme the past couple days. I mean, it's the MLB Playoffs, and the Milwaukee Brewers are still in it, and they're up 1-0 and going into the bottom of the fifth as we're taping this right now. So if people who are viewing this at home, you might view this a little bit later. And I'm supporting Christian Yelich again. But the Brewers are going to the World Series. I got that feeling. I mean, I know their bullpen blew Game 2. And Jeremy Jeffress, he admitted it. Justin Turner got a little lucky, and professional baseball is never luck. But it's time for the Brewers to go to that World Series and take on the Astros, and Brewers will beat them in 6. But I mean, we can talk a little bit, more about that later.
I was going to say, we should probably save the Dodgers-Brewers series to the
Probably.
end.
I could go on for days about that.
Take as much time as we need. So let's just talk about the American League first. Boston and Houston tied 1-1 so far. The next game's tomorrow, I believe.
Yep.
And we've seen early on the matchups of the best pitchers of these teams. First game was Chris Sale, Justin Verlander. Second game, David Price, Garrett Cole. These are 4 of the best pitchers in the entire league. A couple Cy Young winners amongst them. It's big names in terms of pitching worldwide. Some of the biggest names with just these 2 teams. And what we've seen sort of consistently throughout the playoffs so far is that most of these pitchers haven't really been dominating. I mean, in terms of looking at this series, I mean, Verlander would have to has had to have had the best performance out of really any of the aces.
Yeah.
With him going 6 innings. He still gave up 2 runs, but he got the win and went 6 innings. He did what he had to do. But you look at everyone else, Chris Sale only went 4 innings. David Price went 5 innings, but gave up 4 runs despite getting the win. And Garrett Cole also only went 4 or 5 innings, however much it was. So this is sort of a contrast compared to what we have seen in the past couple playoffs, that there are some pitchers that just can't be touched. What do you think is going on with it? I mean, this series, yes, there's tons of really hot bats on both sides, and that's just a known fact. But other than that, do you see any reasons that are sticking out to you as to why aces aren't playing as big of a factor this year?
I think just teams like the Astros, Red Sox, they're used to seeing each other. They saw each other last year. They saw each other plenty of times this year. I think it was like 7. I can't remember. I'm not going to put an exact number on it. But you're getting used to seeing that starting pitcher. And when you see that starting pitcher so much, such as like you said, Chris Sale, he's not going to have his doubt. But when pitchers are on and they're hitting their spots, you're not going to touch them. There's no way. And plenty of hitters will testify to this. They're on, you're not going to hit it because everything's just working for them. Mm-hmm. Also, and I go back to my point before, hitters are recognizing the pitches coming out of the hand. They're used to, like Chris Sale, throwing sidearm. They're used to all these hard throwers. And you kind of see this around the postseason. You see teams start to give up runs more than what you expect normally because the big bats are starting to come alive. Mm-hmm. Big names shine under bright lights. You saw Lorenzo Cain. He didn't do anything really in the NLCS. He's starting to come alive in the NLDS, excuse me. He's coming alive in the NLCS. Xander Bogaerts, that Red Sox lineup. Yeah, they did damage in a game, 16-1, but they didn't really do much. Now their bats are starting to come alive. They're starting to get hits. The Astros starting to come alive after pounding the Indians in the third game of the series. Everybody's bats are starting to come alive because they know what's at stake. Everyone wants to try to be the hero. But, I mean, if you're trying to be the hero, you can still strike out and you can still cost your team the game.
Yeah, but both series tied up 1-1 at this point, not really a good barometer of where things are going, but that won't prevent us from speculating. In terms of where things stand with the Red Sox, Astros right now, obviously you'd lean to say, okay, this is probably going to 7 games, barring something crazy happening. Because especially once you see one strong hit met by another strong hit, and these teams, even so far, it's probably going to 7 games, but who has stood out to you as being more likely to come out on top in the end so far?
I think, to me, I'm sticking with it. I've said this since the playoffs started. I think it's the Astros coming out over the Red Sox in 7. That's just me. I think their lineup is too deep. Like, they have too many solid 1 through 9 hitters. Yes, the Red Sox have very good hitters, 1 through 9, but I think the Astros are just a little bit better, and their bats are starting to come alive at the same time. And they feel like they're the underdog in this matchup. And if you feel like the underdog, you're going to go out there and play with like you have nothing to lose. You're basically playing with house money. Where the Red Sox, I feel like they have more pressure on their side. Manager Alex Cora, having managed in the ALC first year, managing in the ALCS, so he could face a little pressure and he can make a mistake that he doesn't want to. But he does have some people who have managed in the in the championship series. But I just think the Astros are playing with house money and it's theirs to lose.
And I think I would have to agree, really, on maybe the basis that something we talked about a little bit earlier, Justin Verlander is going to be a big factor within this series. One pretty good game so far, but he's just been hot all season. And Chris Sale has had ups and downs. So it's probably going to come down to those two once again. And I think Verlander getting that win against that matchup again, it's going to be so key for Houston because Verlander has just been untouchable. Chris Sale, he goes against the Twins and loses. So you never know what you're really going to get with him. He's dominant most of the times, but especially if, like you said, hitters are keyed in on him. He's very hittable once you've sort of seen him enough. Verlander, there's just something about this year I don't think you can get past him.
Well, and more on that series. David Price got his first playoff win. I understand he wasn't very good. And he hasn't been very good in the postseason, but it happens. And move on from it. You'll learn. And you're good like that. So, I just think that's going to be the X factor in that matchup.
Yeah, that's pretty, for a Cy Young winner to have his first playoff win, that's pretty crazy at this point. But now we're going to move on to the main event of the show, per se, with the Dodgers and Brewers, obviously ongoing as we speak with Game 3. And that will be a big determining factor on where things sort of go. Obviously, every game's counting at this point. And the big thing that I saw in watching Game 2 was sort of the bullpen has faltered in both games. And the Game 2 was less their fault and more that they made Josh Hader throw 3 innings in the first game and simply could not use him for the second. But how do you interpret them and the way they've handled using that bullpen? Because there's a lot of really strong players in there, but they've also had some really negative results early on in the series from them.
Yeah, every pitcher goes through that slump. Hader threw 3 on Monday, or Hader threw 3 on Friday, the first game. He had, there's no chance they were going to use him. The dude was dealing. Why are you going to take him out when he's dealing? I don't care. You won the first game. That's all. To me, that's kind of what matters. You win the first game and you're happy. You go on to win the second game, and so what? You lose the second game on a home run.
Yeah.
You're Craig Counsell and the Brewers. You're like, you got lucky. You got a hit off of us. So what? It happens. Pitchers give up home runs all the time. Jeff has struggled a little bit in the first game. He's played on the stage before with the Royals. Kane's been there. Moustakas has been there. Braun's been here. Everybody else, Curtis Granderson's been there. Everybody else is kind of new to this thing. But you're going to rely on your veterans. But the bullpen is key. People don't realize that Craig Counsell, he only took 3 starting pitchers. He's got 3 sitting in his bullpen. Woodruff, Peralta, and Guerra. He can throw any one of those 3 tomorrow.
Yeah.
Brewers go up. Scenario. Brewers win today. They're up 2-1. So you go throw Guerra tomorrow. You haven't really used him. You throw Peralta tomorrow. You haven't used him. And your bats get hot, so what? Who cares? You're going to be like, okay, I'm just going to leave him out there. If you get shelled for 3 runs through 7 innings, that's a pretty good outing for a Guerra, Peralta, Woodruff, one of those guys. And I hope Woodruff comes up to bat again because that dude absolutely smashed that home run off Kershaw, and I was so excited. I never screamed so loud in my life because he's the first relief pitcher to hit a home run off.
Yeah, first left-handed batter.
Yeah, to hit a home run off a left-handed starter in the postseason.
Pretty crazy. I was absolutely shocked. It was just kind of that's one of those rare like, oh my goodness,
it was
did
like
that really
just
happened kind of moment, like a genuine one. And usually that doesn't happen in like the second or third inning, where it's like history technically.
Yeah,
it's pretty crazy. And you talked about if they win tonight. So let's look at Game 3 happening right now. Obviously, the first game in Dodger Stadium, and the Brewers went 1-1 in their opening stand in Miller Park.
Yep.
I'm not going to say how big is this game, because obviously they're all huge.
They're all big.
But in terms of taking games in Dodger Stadium compared to being in the rowdy environment in Miller Park, because that place was rocking through the first 2 games, really, how big would be losses? Even going 1-1, how important is it to really just not? I
mean,
these are all really stupid questions.
No, it's not. It's not a stupid question because the winner of Game 3, 70% of the time, 7 out of 10 times, they're going on to win. They're going on to the World Series. So it's not a stupid question. Every game is big, but the games 1 and 2 were big. Brewers, if they would have gone up 2-0, I'd have been happy. Like they had a chance to come out 2-0 and put the Dodgers back on their heels. And then the Brewers were kind of playing with house money. So what? You lose a game. Yeah, they won 12 in a row. I expected their win streak to come to an end. I never knew. And they got free burgers courtesy of George Webb. That's happening on Thursday from 2 to 6. But I never expected them to continue their win streak. It was just going to be too hard. And everybody would have took on the Astros and Red Sox to win the World Series. But it just didn't happen. I mean, so this game right now is big. And I hope that the Brewers are able to go on to win like the next 2, because that would be big for them, to win 2 out of 3 in LA and then go back home for the potential series clincher. In front of that environment, holy man, I'd want to be there. I know tickets are expensive and it's probably way absurd, but it's our crew, our October. It's that time. It's time for the Brewers to keep it rolling. It's time for the Brewers to go to the World Series. First time since '82. I mean, yeah, you're shaking your head. Like, yeah, you're a Twins fan. I understand. But even me, a Brewer fan, I like to see the Twins do well. I mean, I think it'd be great to see the Twins Brewers in the World Series one year.
I want the Brewers to win. That's who I want to win the whole thing. I'm right there with you. It's just, you've really gone overboard with the whole presentation.
I'm not Stephen A. Smith. Let's just clarify that. He goes way overboard with his boy Aaron Rodgers.
And it's kind of a moot point, but we asked for the other series. Who do you think's coming out on top in this one?
I think the Brewers are. I really do think they're going to win in 6. Yeah. People are saying, all MLB analysts are like, go after starting pitching, go after starting pitching. What the Brewers do? They added bats. They added fielding. They have a goal line. They have basically a goal line package. So Moustakas at third, Scope at short, Shaw at second, and Aguilar at first. That's a goal line. That's a goal line defensive line with that like 230 pounds.
Yeah, a lot of big boys.
I think the Brewers win in 6. I think Christian Yelich gets it going. I think that lineup, their 7 through 9 hitters are producing pretty well coming up lately. But enough of me talking. Who do you think is going to come out of the series?
It's hard, but seeing the way they took down Kershaw in Game 1. I think I still have to give it to the Brewers. Like, I think there's more passion there. LA, they've been hanging around this part of the playoffs for long enough. I think they're stale. Despite how good Machado is, I don't think they've done enough to really push themselves past where they have been. I think the Brewers just want it more, and I think they're going to be able to use sort of this unique lineup that they have with their starting pitching set and sort of their infield to really push past the Dodgers and take it to the World Series.
I mean, and if we don't realize, Gio Gonzalez only pitched 2 in the first game.
Yeah, he's going to be fresh.
Yeah, so he could pitch tomorrow. Who knows? Who knows what Council's going to do?
And we'll be fresh on X's and O's next week as well, when we're going to be addressing what happens in that Illinois State game we were talking about earlier and analyzing the MLB playoffs at that point. So make sure you come back.
And the MLB World Series, we'll be talking about that because Game 1 will be on Tuesday.
Yep. So make sure you come back. We're going to be talking about all that and more. I'm Jay Lennander.
And I'm Eric Bunnell.
And we'll see you next week.